What's up, everybody? We're here to go over UFC Vegas 95, Tybura versus Spivac 2. But real quick, I wanted to talk about betting results um, for 304, which my big play on the card hit, my biggest play, which was a Sam Patterson, Tom Aspinall parlay. That was a minus 145, and that was a one-unit play. As far as the rest of the bets I posted, didn't really go well, but I had a play on Edwards. I had a really small bet on Nathaniel Wood and Bobby Green. Both of those failed epically. But luckily, my profit from my big bet covered my losses there pretty much. I did have an underdog parlay that, the only underdog on the parlay that won was Rodriguez. So that one didn't hit. It was only $50, and I only had like one other parlay that was like $50. So I was down a little bit there, but I made a little bit of money. I live bet Jake Hadley pretty quickly into the first round. As soon as he started landing those solid shots and everything. Plus, I picked him to win anyway. I don't know if I ever talked about that. I posted it on my Instagram when I put all my picks out right before the fight started that I had Hadley, but I don't know if I talked to you guys about it. But yeah, I live bet Hadley. I live bet Rodriguez. So I came out with a little bit of profit, not much. By the time that I put money on Rodriguez, he was already up, from a underdog to like minus freaking 300 something. So I mean, I only made like $250 when I put almost $1,000 on him or something like that. But and it's risky live betting, man. You got to be careful doing that. There's been a lot of times where I've had bad nights from where my bets didn't hit, and I was chasing my money, with a live bet, and then cost myself even more money, dropping money on a guy who looked like he was about to win the fight, and then he gets knocked out, a second later. So got to be careful with that. It's not something I do a whole lot. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's a solid bet, I'll do it. But either way, man. So, uh, yeah, man, Edwards looked ridiculously bad. Um, Nathaniel Wood, even in a win, Nathaniel Wood kind of has a way of letting crappy. I don't say crappy fighters. Daniel Pineda is a very experienced fighter, but I mean like guys that aren't as good as him get the better of him. It happens to him a lot. He'll be winning dominantly on the feet, and then he'll engage in some grappling, and he's much smaller than most of the guys in the division, and he ends up getting sweeped or thrown around or controlled. Didn't really look like the minus 500 favorite. In my opinion, definitely lost. The third round. I mean, a minus 500 favorite shouldn't lose a round. But yeah, I mean, in that and Rodriguez is a beast, man. He's my favorite fighter now. He already was one of my favorite fighters, but after that, especially, man. I mean, Leroy Duncan looked like he had devil horns on top of his head. By the time Rodriguez got through with him, he had those lumps all over his head, and he just took a beating all the way around. And I'm very proud of the Rodriguez pick because I mean, he wasn't a huge underdog, but a lot of people were going with Duncan. And Rodriguez went out there and fought smart and used his world class grappling and got a win. Um, yeah, I mean the first part of the card went pretty well for me. Early on, aside from I mean I did pick Prackney to win, and he just he had a bad first round, had a good second round, comes out in the third round, hurts the guy, and then for whatever reason decides to go into a clinch and look for a takedown. I mean, you can't hand this guy a win. He almost knocked out Modestas twice and then screwed himself. Yeah, I mean, I'll never pick him again. I thought after his last fight that he'd made a lot of changes, but I guess you can't fix fighter IQ. I guess when it's in those situations, but. And Molly McCann, I was a little bit mad at myself about picking her because I've always thought that I've always never been high on her. I never understood what all the hype was. But I thought for sure, this was a fight where she could go out and look good because typically when she has fought at home, she's gone out and gotten a knockout or something, and Brazil has been knocked out. Um, but I shouldn't have done that because I've never liked either of them, but definitely never liked McCann. But after her last fight, I was like, oh, she's made a lot of adjustments. Maybe she's better now, and she's not. But whatever, man. And uh, done talking about the results, man. So please like and subscribe, guys. It'll help me out a lot. I'm getting close, trying to get up to that 1,000 subscriber mark. I think I'm at like 930 something subscribers right now. If you're new to the channel, what I do is I go through and I give out each of my picks for each of the fights, and then at the end of the video, I give out my bets. And if you're not interested in watching my videos, you just want to see my picks and my bets, you can go to my social medias. If you subscribe to my channel on YouTube, you'll see my bets pop up in the community tab. I post them closer to the fights. High kick fight picks, high kick underscore fight picks is Instagram and TikTok. And there's a Facebook group, High Kick Fight Picks on Facebook. Feel free to post your bets and stuff in there. I want everybody to help each other win money. That's the whole point of the group. And people post their bets sometimes. A lot of people forget, I think. But hopefully one day we'll have enough people in there to where we'll be bouncing ideas off each other and everything. And as always, guys, I'm working with Bovada. It's my favorite sports book. It's the one that I went through and showed y'all on my Instagram, all the screenshotted winning tickets, thousands and thousands of dollars that I've won over the past few years. Easy payouts. You can cash out your parlays early ahead of time. And they actually added something this past week that it's like the one thing that DraftKings kind of had that Bovada didn't. They have the place for the point spread now. They don't have them up right now because they put them up closer towards the fights when they're happening. But they do have the point spread. The plus 5.5 was on Bilal Muhammad, over the weekend, stuff like that. And they've always had the over unders. They just didn't have them right here. You had to click on the prop bets to pull them up. But they've always had those. But yeah, now they got the point spreads, and I was playing around a little bit with that this weekend. And I know this sucks, guys, but for whatever reason, this is the only time in the past like 3 years that that Bovada hasn't had like the lines up for the fight for the card that I'm about to go over. And most of the books don't. They're the only one that has any of the fights up for this card is Bet Online right now. So those are the only odds that I have for this card, and I'm about to go out of town for work for the rest of the week, guys. So I got to get the video done now, unfortunately. So I've got 6 of the fights. I got odds for them. I place bets within those 6 fights. If I add anything, I'll post it so you guys can see it. There are a lot of places on this card that I would really like to put some money. Yeah, man. So I mean, sorry about that. I'm going to attempt to do maybe a contender series video as well, before I go out of town. But if I don't get it out now, I won't be able to get this video out until like next, the middle of next week, and that's too late for me. I get my shit out early, so yeah, man. And as always, man, if you're interested in helping out the channel, you want to help me out, use my link in the comments. Sign up for Bovada, man, and it's a great book. It's one of the best books out there, man. And yeah, man. So that's it. Let's go back and get into this card here. Now that I'm done talking y'all's fucking head off. Yeah. So Tybura versus Spivac 2. Y'all know the first time these guys fought, Tybura won the fight pretty dominantly, but that was quite a few years ago. And both of them have gotten better since then, I would think. But it's just unfortunate that they don't have all the lines up on these anywhere yet. So I'm doing this on Monday, July 29th. So and usually I can find the lines up on one of the books that I use. I mean, luckily Bet Online's one of the books that I have money on. Actually, I only have money on 2 books now, which is Bovada and Bet Online. So I was able to put some bets in, without having to transfer everything over. But yeah, man. So first up, we got Danny Barlow taking on Nikolai Veretennikov. And it's an interesting matchup, man. I really am a big fan of Danny Barlow, and he's taking on a dangerous guy here, man. And Danny Barlow is 29 years old. He is 6'2" with a 79-inch reach. He is 8-0 and 1-0 in the UFC. No odds up yet, but I can almost guarantee you he's going to wind up being a pretty good-sized favorite on this one. Big fan of this guy. Tall, long guy for the weight class. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. 5 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. He went 6-1 as an amateur as well, so I mean, he really hadn't fought a whole lot of tough competition up until his last 2 fights, and even Quinlan. Quinlan's a heavy hitter, but he's now I think 1-3 in the UFC, I believe. So is it a legit win? I mean, at least it's a win in the UFC. But yeah, Quinlan's been struggling a little bit. But either way, Danny has really good striking, great counter striking, throws nice long straight punches. Really good at catching guys on their way in. Uses his height and his reach very well. And I would love to see Barlow fight like Trey Waters, or something like that. Honestly, I think that would be a fun fight. They're both really tall, long guys. Um, I'm not gonna lie, man. There was one point in Barlow's last fight where I kind of thought maybe he was slowing down, he was getting tired, and but then he proceeded to knock out Quinlan. So I mean, yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter what he looked like. He turned it up real quick, and Quinlan in the third round just started rushing him, and it made a big mistake there because Barlow was able to catch him on the way in every time. Um, yeah, I had money on Barlow on that fight, and I was very impressed with his hands and his timing. Throws fast high kicks, really nice footwork, uses his jab very well. Super fast, fights mostly southpaw. Does tend to stand a little heavy on the lead leg, so the leg kicks may be available in this fight. We haven't seen Barlow take on a guy with legit wrestling yet, and I don't know that Veretennikov really is that. He's primarily known for striking. Barlow has a really nice straight left, and before doing my notes on this fight, I wasn't super aware of his opponent here, other than his fight on the Contender Series. So, um, there have been a lot of good fighters coming out of Kazakhstan lately, so that does worry me a little bit here for Barlow. But and Barlow has been trying to route out his game. He's been competing in some grappling tournaments recently as well. So maybe that's something he'll look to apply in this fight. And he's taking on Nikolai Veretennikov. He is 34 years old. He is 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. He is 12-4, and this is going to be his UFC debut. 9 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. Both these guys have a lot of knockouts. Most of this guy's wins have been by finish. He lost to Michael Morales on the Contender Series a few years ago, but there's no shame there, man. Morales is still undefeated in the UFC, and he's very good. And since then, Veretennikov has won 3 fights, all by finish. He does have wins over guys who used to be in the UFC and Bellator, both. Um, Let me see him. I'll pull it up and give y'all some names if I can remember. I think DeMarcus Jackson is fighting in the PFL now, and he used to fight in Bellator. Anthony Ivy, I think, was in the UFC. Yeah, he was in the UFC and Bellator both, even though he never won a fight in either organization. I think he's also in the PFL now. But either way, man, I mean, obviously he's got some wins over some guys who at least in their career made it up to the bigger organizations. So decent competition on the way to the UFC. He did lose 3 fights at the beginning of his career. But since then, his only loss was to Morales, and he has great boxing, big power, good head and arm throws. Grew up training combat sambo like all the guys over there. Fights very well in the clinch with his knees and elbows. Has a few finishes via knees to the body. Throws a nice lead left hook. I think he trains with Giga Chikazi and Benil Dariush. I think Benil Dariush was in his corner the last time he fought in the Contender Series. And now this is a similar to his fight on the Contender Series in that Morales also has a 79-inch reach, just like Danny Barlow, and he does kind of stand heavy on a lead leg. But in all honesty, after going back and watching the Morales fight, it was at least a competitive. The first round was very close. Morales came on strong after that and won the last 2 rounds. But Nikolai isn't particularly known for his wrestling, and while I think Morales is much better than Barlow, they both have that long reach and speed style that gave Nikolai problems before. So this comes down to if Veretennikov has made the adjustments and learned from the Morales fight. I do think that Nikolai is good enough and deserves to be in the UFC. His power is on point, but this could possibly be a bad matchup, for him here. And watching his last 3 fights, looking to see what adjustments he's made. His takedown defense did look improved. He was using his uppercut very well against DeMarcus Jackson, and that was his first submission win ever as well. He showed some good sweeps, and I think he's going to want to use his wrestling here, in this fight. It's on short notice. Barlow's tough to deal with on the feet, but if Quinlan was able to land some big shots on Barlow, it's possible Nikolai could as well. If this fight plays out on the feet, I think Barlow's going to have the advantage. Unless Nikolai maybe goes out and destroys the leg and slows Barlow down or gets the takedowns. But I'm going to be going with Danny Barlow to win this fight. I think I'll take him to win by 3rd round knockout. But I do think Nikolai will have some success in the UFC eventually. But this is a very tough debut to have on short notice. Next up, we got Gregorio. I know the last name. Taking on Toshoshimi Kazama. And Gregorio is 32 years old. He's 5'7" with a 67.5-inch reach. He is 8-4 and 0-1 in the UFC, and no odds for this one. Yeah, I picked against this guy in his debut, and I was right. He has 6 wins by knockout, no wins by submission. He's never been submitted, but was knocked out once by Christian Rodriguez. Actually, he made it to the UFC by beating a heavily favored Cameron Smothering on the Contender Series by knockout. It was an impressive win, and I think Smotherman will probably make it to the UFC eventually as well. So that's a decent win, for Gregorio to have. He's a great kickboxer. Has kind of like a karate type background. He's got the power. Has a finish via leg kicks. I think he has 2 finishes via leg kicks. In his debut, he kind of just got outclassed by a veteran, man, and he does train with Marab and Aljamain Sterling. He had a decent first round in his last fight, but I think the leg kicks and the wrestling pace he was trying to use just kind of wore him out. And he kept trying to stay on the single leg much of the second round, eating elbows to the head. And yeah, it was a bad look. Seemed to get very tired in the second round, and the third he was completely gassed. His cardio definitely didn't look good. This is an easier fight for him. Both these guys have never won a fight in the UFC. Kazama has been knocked out in his last 2 fights, so Gregorio has a good chance here of getting that knockout. He's the better striker, but his cardio could cost him the fight. In all seriousness, I mean, how many changes can he make in 4 months? What improvements can he make? Um, it does kind of look like most of the time when he goes to decision, he loses. But Kazama goes out there and has terrible striking defense. So hopefully Gregorio will probably be able to get him out of there in the first round. If if it's like Kazama's earlier, other UFC fights. But Kazama is 27 years old. He's 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. He is 10-4 and 0-2 in the UFC. 3 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission. He's actually been knocked out in 3 of his last 4 fights. He's a good creative grappler, and that's why I always tried to give him a little credit. I did pick him to win like in his last 2 fights, because he has shown to be really good and creative on the ground, but at a high level, it appears he doesn't have the wrestling to get it to the ground. But like I said, if he could get it to the ground, he might have an advantage here. He really hasn't been trying to use it. He was waiting to shoot his takedowns until he was rocked and hurt in his last 2 fights, or he just went out in his first fight in the UFC and just got knocked out, just ran right into a big punch. In his next one, he didn't shoot until after he was already hurt, really badly. So his striking isn't very good. He's good on the ground, just can't really get the fight there. Has terrible striking defense, and there is a path to victory for him here if he can go out and clinch and wear Gregorio down and eventually get the takedowns or just tire Gregorio out. He can outland him on the feet maybe. If Gregorio's gassed out. But honestly, I'm done putting faith in Kazama. I think he's going to get knocked out again here in the first round, and I don't know if we'll ever see him in the UFC again unless he makes a lot of adjustments. Next up, we got Stephanie Luciano taking on Talita Alencar. 2. Stephanie Luciano is 24 years old. She's 5'6" with a 66.5-inch reach. She's 5-1-1, and this is going to be her UFC debut. No odds up for this yet. I'm really hoping Luciano's an underdog. If she is, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm all over it. These 2 fought in the Contender Series, and it was a draw. Alencar gassed herself out after wrestling in the first 2 rounds. Didn't really do any damage at all in that fight, and then she got 10-8'd in the third round and got the crap beat out of her. I think there's an argument there for, the first round was all Alencar. The second round, at least Luciano did some damage, even though she was on her back a lot of the time. But either way, man, it was a draw, so they both got a contract. Honestly, I like what I saw from Luciano, man, a lot more than what I saw from Alencar. Luciano is a great striker. She's tall and long for the weight class. She's going to have an 8-inch reach advantage, way taller, better striker. 2 wins by knockout, no wins by submission. She's never been finished. She did show good submission defense and great cardio. Really good Muay Thai striking, mixes up her levels really well, legs, body, head. She's young. She's going to be getting better constantly, and great knees, great calf kicks. She's a good fighter, man. And not only is she a good fighter and a well-rounded fighter, She's a good fighter for someone with her amount of experience. You wouldn't think she only had 6 fights on her record or 7 fights or whatever. Um, Stephanie's the whole package, man, that the UFC wants. She's young, she's pretty, she's skilled, and I think she's going to have a lot of success in the UFC. She throws great front kicks up the middle. She needs to go out here and use her jab and her long strikes, beat up the body, and then alencar will gas out again. And I can guarantee you she's been working hard on her takedown defense and on her ground game. And she's already defended all the submissions that alencar tried to throw at her last time they fought. So and I look at it like this, man. A young woman like Luciano, she can catch up to the level of alencar on the ground, but alencar is never going to be able to catch up to Luciano on the feet, in my opinion. Alencar is 33 years old, almost 34, and she was grappling her whole life. She wasn't a striker, so her striking is very basic, and she's never going to be able to catch up to the level of Luciano. But a young 24-year-old could catch up to alencar on the ground for sure. And Talita Alencar is 33 years old. Why bother going over Alencar, right? I already said what I thought about Luciano, but uh, Alencar is 33 years old. She's 5'1" with a 58.5-inch reach. She's 5-0-1 and 1-0 in the UFC somehow. And I did have money on Alencar in her last fight, and even I thought she lost. I thought that was a complete robbery. I wasn't complaining because I made some money on it, but she has a jiu-jitsu background. She was a 6-time world champion in jiu-jitsu. Not very good striking, but she throws a lot of volume. Will get pretty aggressive. A couple of wins by submission, no wins by knockout. Has good trip takedowns, single legs, especially early in the fight. But she does get tired. And I don't doubt how good she is on the ground, but I don't think her striking is going to get much better. She doesn't stand a chance on the feet with Luciano. She never will. Her last 2 fights, she arguably lost. And I think the younger fighter here is going to have made the adjustments and come out here and dominate this fight this time. Maybe alencar will have a good first round, but I don't think alencar is going to skate by 3 times in a row, with the way things have been going. So I'm taking Luciano to win this fight by TKO round 3. I think she finishes her this time. Next up, we got Yana Santos taking on Chelsea Chandler. I think we actually do have the odds for this one. And Yana Santos is 34 years old. She's 5'8" with a 68.5-inch reach. She's 14-8 and 4-5 in the UFC. She's a minus 105, slight underdog. She lost her last 3 fights, but to good competition. It's not out of the question she could win this fight. I mean, it is a step down compared to who she's been fighting. These girls are the same height. Santos will have only a half-inch reach advantage. Her last fight was a split decision. I don't know that I agreed with that though. But she did put up a good fight against Carol Rosa. She has nice elbows in the clinch. Does a lot of her work in the clinch. Good knees as well. She came into the UFC being known for her kickboxing. She will have a speed advantage. Throws good straight punches. Pushes a good pace. She's definitely fought the tougher competition. Chandler is heavily favored on Tapology, but that's probably only based on her beating someone who was half her size and Josiane Nunes. Last time out. Nunes is too small for the weight class, man, but Santos has 7 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. She throws good kicks. She's going to have the advantage there. She hit Rosa with a good axe kick to the face in her last fight. Throws a lot of step-in elbows. She did look way smaller against Rosa, and Chandler is also a pretty big girl as well. So she used a lot of lateral movement, stays on her toes. She's more experienced. She shows 57% striking accuracy with 50% striking defense. 53% takedown accuracy with 43% takedown defense. Averages 1.11 takedowns per fight and lands on average 4.16 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.3. And she's taking on Chelsea Chandler. She is 33 years old. She's 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. She is 6-2 and 2-1 in the UFC, and she's a minus 115. I caught her at a little bit better price than that. 2 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. She's never been finished, and she's been making a lot of improvements since being in the UFC. I mean, she's powerful. She has good boxing. She did miss weight her last time out, so keep an eye on that. But she did look like she was in a lot better shape. But the better shape she gets in, the more she gets down to where she's more comfortable at 135 pounds. She's going to be faster. She's going to be better. There's plenty of room for her to improve as well. Her conditioning. So, I expect her to look better than ever. I think she'll be faster, stronger. She's definitely going to have a power advantage in this fight. She is kind of inexperienced for 33 years old, only being 6-2 and in the UFC. But she got schooled by Norma Dumont. You know, I think, but Dumont's so good that if they still had a 145-pound division, she would be the champ. So either way, I think that loss kind of made Chandler a lot better. It showed her what she needed to work on. Her takedown defenses look questionable so far, but even though she got taken down by Storlinenko, she did reverse the position and end up on top. She has nasty ground and pound. She showed off some wrestling against Nunes. She's going to be the way bigger fighter than Santos. She's very strong. She's a jiu-jitsu brown belt. She can take a punch, man, and she could probably put Santos on her back if she wants. I like her power, her boxing, her strength as well. She shows 45% striking accuracy with 49% striking defense, 60% takedown accuracy with 33% takedown defense. Averages 1.31 takedowns per fight, and she lands on average 3.45 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.9. If Chandler was a huge favorite, I might have decided to go with Santos on this one, but I like the price, man. So I'm going to be taking Chandler to win this fight by decision. I think she's just going to be way too big and strong for Santos, and she's also taking a lot less damage than Santos. So I think she could possibly hurt her as well. So I got Chandler to win by decision. Next up, we got Johnny Parsons taking on Yusaku Kinoshita. And this will probably be a really fun fight while it lasts anyway. Yeah, man. In all honesty, man, there's been some pretty one-sided matchups on this card. There's a lot of them, and this is another one in my opinion. But Johnny Parsons is 32 years old. He's 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. He's 9-3 and 1-0 in the UFC. 7 wins by knockout, no wins by submission. Never been submitted, but has been knocked out a few times. Parsons is a Muay Thai machine, man. Very powerful and skilled striker. Likes to brawl. Likes to have wars with people. He's not the biggest welterweight, but he has legit power and great kicks, nasty combinations, good at checking kicks. Very rarely does a leg kick actually get him without him checking it. You can tell he's been like a lifelong, Muay Thai guy. He has great technique on his strides. His kicks get way up there, man, for a shorter guy. Yeah, he's really good at rolling with punches and taking the sting off of the shots. Rocks the mullet really well. Goes to the body a lot with his strikes. He shells up really well as well and deflects shots with his forearms. Great cardio. Power carries over late into the fight. He pushes forward. Does a great job in the clinch. Very strong in the clinch. Fights mostly southpaw, but he can fight well from both stances. Great ground and pound. Takedown defense held up so far. He does pretty good work from top position on the ground as well. And, I think he's no doubt the better striker in this fight and probably has a power advantage for sure. Not enough fights in the UFC for me to go over the stats on him yet. I usually wait till there's at least 3 fights, to go over. And a lot of guys, it'll be the Contender Series and 3 fights in the UFC, and then that's a little bit more reliable in numbers to go with, He's taking on Kinoshita. He is 23 years old. He's 6 foot tall with a 71.5-inch reach. He is 6-3 and 0-2 in the UFC. He's going to be taller. He's going to have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. 4 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. All his wins have been by finish. He's never won or lost a decision. He's not very experienced, man, and he seems to have a lot of holes in his game. He's been knocked out twice in a row now, and even in the Contender Series fight, he got clipped in that fight as well, but he was able to come back and get the win. He does have good power on his shots, pretty fast. He probably has an advantage on the ground if he can get it there, but he really hasn't shown good wrestling at a high level. And he was easily taken down by Adam Fugit and mounted immediately and knocked out. And I think it's just kind of a case of just a little too much too soon for this guy. He's still very young. I think he's gonna, make a lot of improvements in his career, but maybe this is just a little bit too much for him at this point in his career. But if he can't get the takedowns, I think he's going to be in trouble, on the feet, in my opinion. So I'm going to take Parsons to win this fight by knockout round 2. Next up, we got Carl Williams taking on Montana Diniz. I don't know how to say his first name. Just call him Diniz. Carl Williams is 34 years old. He is 6'3 with a 79-inch reach. 10-1 and 3-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 265 favorite. Carl is just has a big advantage, in the UFC because he's one of the few heavyweights that actually has legit wrestling, and that can actually do it for more than one round. Um, and if he didn't have that, I don't know what he would have, but that's been the story of his fights, man. Great single legs, trip takedowns, fast and explosive early. The level of competition he's been beating could be better. His first two wins were over terrible competition, and he did beat Justin Taffa last time out. But if you look at Justin's wins in the UFC, he's only beaten the bottom of the barrel guys, kind of. And I like Justin Taffa and his brother. I think they're both great strikers, but uh, Taffa just hasn't gotten a super impressive win in the UFC yet, like over a tough guy. Um, I do like Bretsky's striking, but his takedown defense is trash. So Williams was able to beat him easily. Williams has 3 wins by knockout, no wins by submission. His only loss was by submission. And once again, I feel like this is a favorable matchup for him. He's fighting a kickboxer with bad takedown defense. He's not going to want to strike with this guy at all. And I wish Williams would push for more submissions or really work his jiu-jitsu. I get it. He plays it very safe. He doesn't want to go for something and get reversed and end up getting hit by one of these big dudes. But either way, the UFC isn't gonna push the guy, to the top unless he like, finishes some people. I think, and like they just, Dana White said Makayev isn't coming back. They're not signing him again. And there's a lot of factors in that, but one of the factors is like his last 2 fights were trash. So um, he has good speed on his punches, good ground and pound. He has advantages on the ground, and he pushes a really good pace. And he's fast, being the smaller guy at heavyweight, and uses a lot of pressure. So he tires guys out. And he shows 53% striking accuracy with 61% striking defense, 50% takedown accuracy with 100% takedown defense, averages 4.25 takedowns per fight, and he lands on average 2.87 strikes per minute while absorbing 1.70. And Diniz is 33 years old. He's 6'4" with a 79.5-inch reach. He is 7-0 and 1-0 in the UFC, and he's a plus 225 underdog. All 7 of his wins have been by knockout. He's not well-rounded, comes from a high-level kickboxing background. He did get dominated by Austin Lane in the first round of his last fight, and then Lane was gassed out and lost after that. Williams has good cardio. He's not going to get tired. Diniz does have great striking. Big power advantage here, big striking advantage, great jab. He's going to have a half-inch reach advantage. He's the more technical striker out of these two for sure. And honestly, his fight in the Contender Series, while he won the fight, he was kind of losing that fight before he got the knockout. Not the fastest guy, but huge power, good knees in close. And if he can stop Carl from doing what he always does, he's got a good shot, and then we'll know he's a legit guy. But all but his last win were first round finishes. We've never seen him in a third round. What will he look like after that? And after he's had a legit wrestler on top of him for 2 rounds or 1 round. I would rather see Diniz win. He's more exciting, but I don't know if he does win this fight and beat a good wrestler. Take him a lot more seriously. But I can't go with him just yet. And I think I'm going to take Williams to win this fight by decision or maybe submission, but most likely decision, like his last 3 fights. Next up, we got Carl Rosa taking on kianzad. And Carol Rosa is 29 years old. She's 5'5" with a 67.5-inch reach. She is 17-6 and 6-3 in the UFC, and she's a minus 155 favorite. I caught her at a little bit better price than that. 4 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. Never been knocked out, but was submitted twice. Rosa is a great fighter, man, and she's going to be the much bigger, stronger fighter in this fight. She hits very hard. She does kind of stand flat-footed, but it just makes her punches even more powerful. Her takedown defense is pretty good. She's never been finished in the UFC. She looked much faster in her last fight, and she looked like she was in a lot better shape, than when she fought Santos. Throws great low kicks. She was finishing her combinations with kicks every time last time out, and she was beating Aldano's legs up, inside and out, in the last fight. She looked great early on in that fight. She was using her jab very well. I think that if she had mixed in her wrestling, she probably could have won that fight. Her combinations were super smooth last time out. I was very impressed with how she looked, in the first half of that fight. And even in the last round, when they were both tired as hell, they were still beating the hell out of each other. So It was a great fight, man. Good performance for her. Um, with it's that fight was definitely one of the better women's fights I've seen in a long time. Rosa throws good jumping knees, super high volume. She's going to have a 1.5 inch reach advantage. She's younger. She's improving. I think she can take this fight anywhere she wants to, honestly. She has a power advantage on the feet, but, in the past, lots of people have taken down kianzad and won that way and submitted her. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Rosa take her down and submit her. Rosa shows 56% striking accuracy with 50% striking defense, 46% takedown accuracy with 68% takedown defense. She averages 1.22 takedowns per fight, and she lands on average 6.34 strikes per minute while absorbing 4.78. So high volume, does get hit quite a bit. A lot of that's probably from her last fight, that war she was in, but she's taking on Pani Kianzad. She is 32 years old, 5'7", with a 66-inch reach. She is 16-8 and 5-5 in the UFC, and she's a plus 135 underdog. 3 wins by knockout, no wins by submission. She's been submitted 3 times and knocked out once. Honestly, she hasn't looked good against legit competition in quite a while. Her last win was over Lena Landsberg, who was at the end of her career at that point. So I don't see a lot of super impressive wins in the UFC for her. She's not a finisher. She does have good kickboxing, but she is going to be at a big power disadvantage here, like I said. And I think she's kind of outclassed here in this fight, everywhere, guys. And there's not a lot I can say in her favor here, unfortunately. I do think that Rosa is probably going to destroy, Kianzad in this fight. And I'm taking Rosa to win by TKO. TKO round 2. I think this is a pretty one-sided fight. The way Rosa looked last time out, I think she should have no problem beating Kianzad here. Next up, we got Chepe Mariscal taking on Damon Jackson. It's an interesting fight, man. Mariscal is 31 years old. He's 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. He is 16-6 and 3-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 225 favorite. 7 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. Never been submitted, but has been knocked out a few times. His knockout losses are all to guys who ended up in the UFC, man, and a lot of those guys are pretty good fighters. And Chepe also has a lot of wins over guys who ended up in the UFC. So he's kind of underrated, man. He's fought great competition before the UFC, and I had money on him in his last fight, guys, and I did think he lost that fight. But like I said, I wasn't complaining. But whatever. He's going to be a lot smaller in this fight. Part of me wonders if he can make 135 sometimes, but I feel like it would be a better suit for him. But also, he's beaten a lot of guys even who ended up fighting at lightweight in the UFC. So it's not like he hasn't had success either. So, I mean, I guess maybe he feels like he don't need to. He's well-rounded, very experienced veteran. He will be the better striker in this fight. He has good judo throws, great grappling and wrestling. He's really the whole package, man. And after looking into it, I think Chepe's probably fought the tougher competition. And definitely has the better wins. Good counter striking, nasty combinations in the pocket. He fights very aggressively. He tries to answer everything his opponent hits him with one of his own. If he can stop Jackson's wrestling here, it's his fight all day. He shows 53% striking accuracy with 53% striking defense, 29% takedown accuracy with 67% takedown defense. He averages 2.35 takedowns per fight, and he lands on average 4.70 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.68. He's taking on Damon Jackson. He is 36 years old. He's 5'11" with a 71-inch reach. 23-6-1 and 6-4-1 in the UFC. He's a plus 190 underdog. 4 wins by knockout, 15 wins by submission. He's been knocked out 4 times and submitted once. His strong parts of his game have always been his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu. 15 wins by submission, says it all. I had him in his last fight, and it was a very close fight, but he got the win. He made me some money there. He's fought everywhere, the PFL, LFA, Bellator, UFC. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He's way taller. And I could see a world where he gets the takedowns and pulls out a decision victory here. But I could also see Chepe landing those judo throws on Jackson in the clinch and ended up on top. Jackson pushes a tough pace. He'll go for takedowns the whole fight, but my thoughts are that if Billy Quarantillo can beat Damon Jackson, I think Chepe has a really good shot at beating him as well. Jackson does tend to struggle a little bit more with guys with a lower base, like Chepe and Dan Ige are basically the same size pretty much. Dan Ige might be a little bit wider, stronger, but they're the same height. So I do think Chepe has more advantages in this matchup, but if Jackson can get him down, that will kill all Chepe's, advantages. So Jackson shows 41% striking accuracy with 52% striking defense, 36% takedown accuracy with 41% takedown defense, which leads me to think that Chepe can take him down if he wants, Jackson averages 1.38 submissions per fight, 2.51 takedowns per fight, and he lands on average 3 strikes a minute while absorbing 3.29. I'm taking Chepe to win this fight by TKO, late TKO, round 2 or 3. Next up, we got Alan Nascimento taking on Rafael Filho. And Nascimento is 32 years old, coming up on 33. He's 5'8" with a 69.5-inch reach. He is 20-6 and 2-1 in the UFC. 1 win by knockout, 15 wins by submission. He's never been finished. I like both these guys a lot, man. I'm a big fan of Rafael Filho and Nascimento, and I've made money on both these guys in their past few fights. So it sucks that one of them's going to have to lose, but they're both known as pretty high level grapplers. But I would have to say that Nascimento probably has the edge in the grappling. Nascimento in his debut against Tagir Ulanbekov arguably could have won that fight. His grappling held up. It's good enough that he can hang in there with those Russian guys and not get submitted, and have his own moments in the fights. But he has really good sweeps. He's an inch taller, has a 1-inch reach advantage here. His striking has improved a lot since being in the UFC. Dangerous off of his back, great singles and doubles, good trip takedowns as well. Heavy top pressure. He's so good at rolling and attacking submissions and ending up on top when guys engage with him on the ground. Throws good front kicks up the middle, but it's just all his striking is basically just to get in close and get a hold of his opponents. So, he's really good at taking the back up against the cage, and I can't say enough good things about his grappling. He shows 61% striking accuracy with 50% striking defense, 26% takedown accuracy, which may not be updated because he's been getting a lot of takedowns in his last few fights. And it says he has 17% takedown defense, which I don't understand because nobody aside from Ulanbekov has tried to take him down. Maybe that's why. Maybe Ulanbekov got him down every time he took him down. I don't know. But he averages 1.55 takedowns per fight, and he lands on average 3.21 strikes per minute while absorbing 2.28. He's taking on Rafael Filho. He is 31 years old, 5'7" with a 68.5-inch reach. He is 16-3 and 2-1 in the UFC. And did we have the line on this fight? I guess not. 2-1 in the UFC, and he made his debut against Muhammad Makayev and almost destroyed Makayev's knee. It wasn't a bad performance on his behalf. Then he ended up getting submitted, but since then he's had 2 submission wins. But it's kind of been his striking that's led up to those. Man, he's hurt these guys on the feet and then got them down and hopped on a submission. He has great Muay Thai striking, great calf kicks, big power in his hands as well. Does get quite a bit wild at times with striking. He will wing a lot of hooks and crazy shots. He's not afraid to brawl, but that also leaves a lot of openings, So he does have really good jiu-jitsu as well, good single legs, fights very aggressively, very good at transitioning to the back. He has the better striking, the power advantage on the feet in this fight, and if he can stop the takedowns from Nascimento, he could definitely win this fight. I don't think he should at all engage on the ground with Nascimento, though, because even if he's on top, because Nascimento is so good at sweeping and rolling for submissions and ending up on top. Rafael has 5 wins by knockout, 10 wins by submission himself, never been knocked out, but has been submitted twice. So the submission defense worries me against a guy like Nascimento. It's a close fight, man, and I can see it going either way. I think if Rafael wins, it's by knockout. Nascimento wins by submission or decision. Rafael shows 41% striking accuracy with 47% striking defense, 33% takedown accuracy with 56% takedown defense. Averages 2.65 submissions per fight, 1.77 takedowns per fight, and he lands on average 2.36 strikes per minute while absorbing 2 strikes per minute. I'm going with Nascimento to win this fight by submission round 3 using his grappling. I think he's going to be the better grappler, but it's a dangerous fight for him for sure. Next up, we got Jarno Errens taking on Yusuf Zalal. And Errens is 29 years old. He's 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. He is 14-5-1 and 1-2 in the UFC, and he's a plus 215 underdog. He kind of has that Dutch style kickboxing that they don't talk about very much nowadays. He's one of the few people that you used to hear people talk about Michael Johnson with that style back in the day, and it's been a long time, since I've heard anybody talk about that other than with Jarno Errens. He's definitely got some power. He hurt his last opponent several times in that fight, but he couldn't get the finish. But honestly, I don't know if Steven Wynn, maybe he didn't belong in the UFC, but I don't know, man. He looked way smaller in that fight than Jarno Errens. But we finally got to see what Errens is capable of, man. He's a big featherweight, throws great calf kicks. I think he's going to be a lot bigger in this fight since Zalal has fought at bantamweight in the past. Um, throws a great straight right hand to the body. Pushes a good pace. He's not afraid to go to war. He has a really nice kind of like leaping in uppercut. Nasty combinations in the pocket, and I do think this fight will be his toughest fight yet, though. That he's ever had. Um, he has big holes in his takedown defense, and also that he really just tries to kickbox. He's never landed a takedown in the UFC. He has 3 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission. Never been knocked out, but has been submitted once. But on the feet, man, he's a pretty good striker. He does stand a chance there with most guys. Throws nice spinning attacks and elbows. Doesn't want to be in the clinch. He just wants to be out in the open, striking, out in the open. He shows 46% striking accuracy with 63% striking defense. 0% takedown accuracy with 29% takedown defense. He lands on average 3.44 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.36. He's taken on Yusuf Zalal. He is 27 years old, 5'10 with a 75-inch reach. He is 14-5-1 and 4-3-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 245 favorite. I caught him a little bit better price than that. He's never been finished. 4 wins by knockout, 7 wins by submission. He's been robbed of some decisions, in the UFC. Man, he went to a decision with Tybura, and I'm not saying he won that one, but I mean, not a lot of people made it to a decision with Tybura. Honestly, the UFC was kind of crazy for cutting this guy, in the first place. He's well rounded. He stayed busy when he was out of the UFC. He won 3 MMA fights all by finish, and 1 kickboxing fight as well by finish, as well as a boxing match by decision while he was out of the UFC. And 3 of those, I mean, they weren't against the super high level competition, but he won dominantly. And 3 of those were on the same night. He did an MMA fight, a boxing match, and a kickboxing match in a tournament all on the same night, and he won all 3. And then he came back and he dominated Billy Quarantillo, man. And I think I had an underdog play on him in that spot. I'm pretty sure it was underdog play. I know I had money on him. He's actually very good, man. When you look into it, great kickboxing, nice double legs, good entries. He's fought at 135 before. Has great submission defense, great cardio as well. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. Throws a nice jab, nice step in knees. He definitely throws a wider variety of strikes than Errens does. He trains at elevation, and going back and watching the Damon Blackshear fight that was a draw, I don't agree with that being a draw. I thought Zalal clearly won that fight, the first round, and then he got a 10-8 in the third because he almost, finished Blackshear. And if I'm being honest, Zalal has a lot of advantages in this fight. I think he's a better grappler, has the better wrestling. He's more technical on the feet. It just all kind of comes down to how he deals with the pressure from Errens. I don't think it's anything he hasn't seen before. He's a really good wrestler. He arguably beat Sean Woodson when they fought. That was a decision that I didn't really agree with either. Great calf kicks, great kickboxing. Just way more well-rounded than Errens. Good footwork, good side-to-side movement, light on the toes. He shows 49% striking accuracy with 66% striking defense, 34% takedown accuracy with 61% takedown defense. Averages 1.34 submissions per fight, 2.28 takedowns per fight, and he lands on average 2.88 strikes per minute while absorbing 1.73. I think he's probably going to end up taking Errens down and submitting him. I'm going to take him to win by submission round 2. Next up, we got the co-main event. Javad Basharat taking on Chris Gutierrez. It's a good fight, man. It's good matchmaking. Basharat is 28 years old. He's 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. He is 14-1 and 3-1-1, 14-1-1 and 3-1-1 in the UFC. And he's a minus 191 favorite. 5 wins by knockout, 6 wins by submission. Never been finished. We did lose a decision last time out, man. It was a close fight, but he was getting hit with the much bigger shots, and I actually really do think Zahabi is a very underrated fighter. Basharat had... I'm not going to talk over the sirens. Somebody probably got in a wreck. Um, no finishes in the UFC yet, though. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage, and we all know how good the Basharat brothers are. Very technical striking, great low kicks. Last time out, he was kind of using like a taekwondo type style, man, the way he was bouncing on his toes and throwing a lot of kicks. But not big power punchers, though, man. They do have great wrestling and jiu-jitsu, but he couldn't get the takedowns last time out against the hobby. So, good wrestling, but he will have to get the takedowns in this fight, most likely. I think. He's not going to want to keep getting hit with those calf kicks from Gutierrez. Um, Javid throws nice kicks with his lead leg, good head movement and footwork. He stays in your face. He pressures you. Uses good feints, good side kicks. Shows 54% striking accuracy with 62% striking defense. 41% takedown accuracy with 86% takedown defense. Averages 1.70 takedowns per fight, and he lands on average 5.42 strikes per minute while absorbing 2.97. He puts out a lot more volume, throws a wider variety of kicks, but doesn't really ever hurt guys with his strikes, though. He's taking on Chris Gutierrez. He is 33 years old. He's 5'9" with a 67-inch reach. He is 25-2 and 8-3-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 166 underdog. 9 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. Never been knocked out, but was submitted 1 time. Chris is really good, man, and he's a great boxer, man. And while Javid may be the more technical striker and throw like a wider variety, I think Chris has the more effective striking. He does damage with his strikes. He has superior leg kicks to everyone except Jonathan Martinez. He has great footwork himself and does a really good job of fighting safe and setting up his shots. And he also throws a lot of kicks as well, man. So throws nice straight punches. Great knees and spinning attacks. And I'm actually really tempted to take Chris after, watching Javid's last fight again, because I could absolutely see Javid landing the volume and Chris clipping him with the bigger shots and beating up his calves with those calf kicks. I think Chris has a really good shot at winning this. I think Javid will have to take him down, and that's really what this fight comes down to. If Javid can't get Gutierrez down, I don't know that he wins this fight. So. I know Chris lost his last fight, but I think Song Yadong would destroy, Basharat, either of them, no problem. But also I think, that was Chris's first 5-round fight, first main event, a lot of pressure, something he's not used to, man. And he's going to have made improvements since then. He's fought the tougher competition. He has the better wins, way better wins than Javid. Chris also throws a ton of kicks, man, and he'll put out those soft little kicks and then slam the power ones. He'll just keep touching you with the little kicks. And then when you get used to it, because they're not hurting you, he slams those hard kicks in. He's a great counter striker, and we've really only seen Chris struggle with guys with a lot of power, guys that can hurt him on the feet. And I don't know that Javid can do that. Chris shows 58% striking accuracy with 64% striking defense, 30% takedown accuracy with 69% takedown defense, averages half a knockdown per fight, and he lands on average 4.80 strikes per minute while absorbing 2.79. After going back and forth with myself quite a bit on this one, I think I'm going to go with the underdog here. I'm going to take Chris to win by decision. I do think Chris can outstrike this guy, so as long as he can keep it on the feet, I think he can win a decision. But I would love to see him knock out Javid Basharat. I don't know if everybody else agrees with me on that, but I don't think I'm going to get heavily invested in that fight. I might have one little parlay or an underdog parlay that has him in it. Not something where I'm going to risk a lot of money on it, because Javid's really good. I know that, but I think Chris has a good shot. Next up, we got the main event: Marcin Tybura taking on Survey Spivac for a second time. Tybura is 38 years old. He's 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. He is 25-8 and 12-7 in the UFC, and he is a minus 110. This fight's a pick'em, or it was yesterday. 8 wins by knockout, 8 wins by submission. He's never been submitted, but has been knocked out 5 times. But we're talking about heavyweights here, man. They all get knocked out all the time. So these two fought before. Tybura won a unanimous decision. Tybura just beat Tuivasa, and I know Tuivasa's on a bad run right now, but he is a good striker and he's very dangerous, and it's not easy to finish that guy. And Tybura also. He's also the one that kind of exposed Alexander Romanov. Everybody was all high on Romanov, and Tybura went out there and and stuffed the takedowns and had him gassed out and beat him. Tybura is the more well-rounded. He's more well-rounded than a lot of heavyweights in the UFC. Honestly, he's got a lot of submission wins. He's 7-2 in his last 9 fights, with those losses being to Tom Aspinall and Alexander Volkov, two of the best. These guys are the same height, same reach. I would definitely say that Tybura has fought the tougher competition and has the better wins. They both have beaten Tai Tuivasa though. Spivac's best win was over Derek Lewis. Tybura has the better striking on the feet, whereas Spivac has gotten a lot of his knockouts with ground and pound. Tybura has pretty good wrestling himself. He used that the first time these guys fought. He was kind of controlling Spivac on the ground a lot. He has nice double legs. He's the lighter, faster guy. And going back and watching their last fight, early in the fight, it looked like Spivac had the cleaner boxing, but Tybura was landing, as well with those big, heavy shots, kind of more unorthodox. It was close on the feet. Then Tybura got the takedown in the first round and kept Spivac down. He didn't seem to have much off of his back, so Tybura ended up controlling the whole fight. And yeah, man, Sergey Spivac is 29 years old. He's 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. He's 16-4 and 7-4 in the UFC, and he's a -110 favorite. 7 wins by knockout, 7 wins by submission. Both these guys are 50-50 on their finishes, submissions and knockouts. Spivac also has never been submitted, but has been knocked out 3 times. And I go back to this, and everyone talked about how good Spivac's wrestling was, and he couldn't get gone down, and Francis Ngannou was able to get gone down pretty easily, and Ngannou wasn't a wrestler at all. So is Spivac's wrestling really that good? I don't know, but he looked really bad against Gane, didn't stand a chance on the feet. So yeah, Tybura controlled the whole fight last time, but that was early in Spivac's career. Spivac is only 29 now. Tybura is 38. So things could have changed since then. Spivac could be a lot better. Tybura could have slowed down a little bit. Spivac has good inside trips. His boxing is pretty good. Has improved a lot. In the first fight, Spivac kept trying to get those throws, and Tybura would end up on top. So Spivac has nasty ground and pound. Tybura is slightly favored on Tapology. And I'm going back and forth with myself on this one. I don't know if I should go with the guy who was better before, or I guess I'm going to go with Tybura, man. It's a 5-round fight. I don't think this fight goes 5 rounds. These guys, if this fight gets into the 4th or 5th round, this fight's going to look pretty ugly. But it is possible Spivac, the younger guy, could come out here and get the win. I probably won't be betting on this fight at all, but I'll take Tybura to win this fight by decision. Or no, by submission. Round 4. Round 3. Let's go round 3. Since I doubt these guys either have that great a cardio. So yeah, man, like I said, guys, I'm sorry that I had to do this video before all the lines are out. But I did put in some bets to show you guys. And so far on this card, and if whenever I have more bets, dude, I'll post them. And I've got a play on Carol Rosa at -135. That's a 1-unit play. I got a play on Yusuf Zalal at -220. That's a 1-unit play. And then I've got a 3-fight parlay that's Chepe, Chandler, and Zalal. That's +315. That's just a quarter-unit play. I think it's actually less than a quarter unit. I think it's like $200. And so far, man, that's all I got, man. And I'll post more ahead of time. But I also wanted to go back and I wanted to give y'all the wanted to go over a parlay that I put in. I guess they do have all the lines finally up on all the lines up on here. I put in a parlay. I actually put it in on Bet Online because they didn't have all the lines up until today on here. But I remember what it was, so I'll just pull it up on here. I like Godinez as that underdog. It's +110. Was that what I put in? Picks. I feel like there's a fight missing. I wonder if I can pull it up on 5 picks. I feel like there's one more fight that I had on there. It's 12 fights. I put 120 on it. Yeah, I'm definitely missing something. Let me look at it on here. So let's see. I think I had Nurmagomedov, Lupi, Cal, Dudakova. Guram. That's what was missing. Guram and Bullet. And yeah, that's a plus 1,095. So Shara Magomedov, Guram Kudalice, Dudakova, Fernandez, Godinez, and Nurmagomedov. That's a plus 1,095, and I put 120 bucks on it. Yeah, so that's the parlay that I have for this card. Because I didn't post them with my video when I went over the card. So as far as anything else, I don't know if there's any changes I need to go over. I think the only change was the Guram Kudalice fight, but I'll take a look. I'm going with Guram in that fight. Although the last time that he ended up fighting somebody on short notice, it didn't go his way. But I mean, looking at the level of competition that this guy's been fighting, apparently he's very good on the ground, man. He's got a lot of submission wins. I watched some of the tape earlier on him, but I'm going to take Guram still to win that fight, man. But you never know. That could be the one that kills it for me. Yeah, I think that's it, guys, man. Thank you so much. Sorry about the lines not all being up, but I'll post more bets whenever the lines come up. You know, whenever somebody's got them. Like I said, right now the only book that has any lines up for this card is Bet Online. So, yeah, man. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for caring what I have to say. I appreciate each and every one of you guys, and I hope you win some money, man. And don't forget to check out my link, bovada.lv. That helped me out a lot, man. And yeah, y'all have a good one, man. I'm about to head out of town for a week. Good luck, guys.